All right, guys. Joining us here is a man who can best be described as an ape in a cage, getting more amazing with age. One half of Morning Combat, the legendary Luke Thomas. Welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you, Luke? Haven't been hit by any ice cream trucks lately, have you?
No ice cream trucks I've been hit by, although certainly it looks that way. I could imagine if someone felt that way, they'd be right. By the way, do you know where that line, I'm an ape in the cage, getting more amazing with age, comes from?
Is that one of your favorite lyrics? It's a Wiggles song, isn't it?
Sounds like a John Cena classic.
No. Bad guesses in both directions for anyone who might be curious. It's half of a line, half of a bar from Vinny Paz, the rapper, not the boxer.
Oh yeah.
So there you go.
So I was heading that direction, Doctor of Thugonomics. Shout out to Vinny Paz. All right, let's just kick it off with something a little bit fun, Luke. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg? I knew you'd love this one. Do we need to see this happen? Do you want to see this happen? And who are you backing here?
I mean,
looks like I'm going to bed.
It is P.T. Barnum who said there's a sucker born every minute, right? That's who said it.
Yeah.
Boy, he was, quite prescient, quite prescient. Here's the funny part about this. People saying that they really have to see this. And it's like, of course, that's just total bullshit. Not to say that I'm not arguing that were they were to go through with this, that it would tank at the box office. That is not what I'm arguing. Rather, it's like, if you ever wondered how Transformers made a lot of movies, well, here you go. There is not a lot of discernment about what is worthy of being reviewed. But if I can be honest, I actually feel like part of what is like, why would you want to see two people who manifestly cannot do this well do it, right? There would have to be some other kind of compelling reason to see it. And the argument is, oh, well, they're both really rich guys. And, you've never seen anything like two rich elite CEOs going at it. But it's like, right, but okay, that's not true either. What about the CEO of Alphabet, the parent company of Google, and the CEO of Apple, or the CEO of Accenture, and then the CEO of name some other consulting firm, or something like people who occupy these other ones? Would you really want to see any of those permutations? And maybe the answer is in certain cases, some of them. But the point I'm trying to make is it's not really inherently that either, because I could name other scenarios where that's the case, and people probably wouldn't answer it. I think the bigger one is that Elon has a public profile. Certainly Mark Zuckerberg does to an extent as well. I think Mark Zuckerberg it's a weird thing, but certainly in the case of Elon, here's part of the reason why people want to see it is that a lot of the fan base finds him politically appealing, right? That he is a figure of adoration inside a certain, I would say, rather large segment of the fan base. Zuckerberg's a little bit more polarizing, but even then, it's like the people who like Elon because they claim he's a free speech defender in online spaces. Some of them dislike Mark Zuckerberg. I saw Jake Shields speaking out against him, so I felt like he was being pretty consistent. But in other cases, you've seen people just line up to train him, to be his friend, to do everything else. When in other cases, I don't think that's in any way in alignment with their political ideals. So it's this weird mix of, yes, these guys have public personas. Yes, it is somewhat unusual. But I think a lot of it just comes down to, hey, these really rich guys who are famous, like MMA, wouldn't it be cool if we welcomed them in? And I'm like, these two guys are tech oligarchs who deserve to fuck off for life. No, I don't want to see them at all.
Dennis, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to say, what would you want to watch less? This fight or Fast and the Furious X?
This fight.
Well, that's bad.
I'm not so sure about that, actually, right?
Fast and the Furious X. I lost a lot of good men, Luke. I don't know what could be worse. Jason Momoa playing the Joker or seeing this?
Yeah, I would just say the Fast and the Furious would be a better watch in the sense that I don't think it's as terrible, but it's 2 hours long or something. Whereas this fight is going to be, if it goes 2 minutes, I'd be surprised, right? So, you get a quicker bang for your buck, I guess, with watching two completely unworthy ass wipes try to go at it. So congrats everyone who thinks that's an awesome idea. Yeah.
Just lastly, before we get off, we're not going to stay on this for too long, but do you think it'd be a big win for the UFC? Like if it does smash all pay-per-view records, and then if you're the UFC and you're like, all right, who do we really, really want to promote? We'll stick like an Israel Adesanya or maybe not John Jones because close to retirement, but someone, and that will get more eyes on the product. And it could be kind of like, with the pandemic where the UFC was the only thing going. So people watched and, all of a sudden you got all these new fans. And I think also part of the appeal is like back in the day, it was like you'd have to explain MMA to people and it was annoying. It's like, what is that? Is that like pro wrestling, this and that? And this is like the ultimate, like the whole world is so accepting of MMA. Two of the richest guys, most famous dudes, would potentially do something in it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overstate any old comparisons to a different era of MMA. So let me answer this one in like genuine fashion here, if I may, which is that I watch Japanese go like this and then like this. And for folks who may not appreciate that, Japanese MMA for a time was the center of the universe of MMA. It was where the very best fought the best. And I know there was some time, obviously, where, UFC was obviously a major leader in North America, maybe a little bit in other parts of the world as well. And again, eventually UFC beat them out and acquired them. But I'm just saying, let's say the heyday of MMA in Pride. I watched that. I watched that happen, and you just cannot imagine how much more important that market was, not merely relative to what it is today, but like the center of the universe wasn't Las Vegas, it was Tokyo. And it all went away, or at least a good chunk of it went away. And the answer is why. The reasons are complicated, and some of that is in no way applying here. I want to be very clear. I don't want to say this is apples to apples. It is not. The question is rather, what can we learn from those lessons? Maybe nothing for a one-off. The UFC has actually been very clever about how they've done these things. Like, for example, they went a little bit further with Brock, but Brock turned out from, pro wrestler turned fighter, turned out he could actually fight his ass off, at least for that time in which he tried to make the move over. James Toney, one and done. CM Punk, they did two of them far apart. It didn't really hurt their brand. It didn't really help their brand. But, these are relatively short-lived experiences. They kind of get in and get out. And they do that for a very particular reasons, because the Japanese did not. What the Japanese ended up doing was really going sugar high on Akebono versus Royce Gracie, or a lot of just real hardcore spectacle. And what ended up happening was the fan preference went in that direction because they were telling the fans this is what is most important. But then, of course, they grew tired of that because it was just a gimmick in the end. And then they never went back to the real thing. So the answer is, could it be beneficial for the UFC in other ways? The answer is yes, of course it could. My only concern would be any kind of like pivot in the business to where they're much more accommodating, not merely of this, but of things like this in quicker succession. I do think that has ominous potential outcomes that we should avoid. So if it really is just a one-off, I find it incredibly stupid, but probably not a big deal. In fact, could even be helpful in the right circumstance.
I feel like Bellator MMA had that as well when they put some of the older guys up against each other, and people were like, this is hard to watch sometimes. And it kind of turned them off from watching future Bellator fights and stuff like that. So it's an interesting thing, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, and also hopefully there's not too many more Fast and the Furious movies. Now, speaking to a man that would be amazing in Pride, Sean Strickland, kind of a callback to that time, is fighting this weekend, man. I got to ask, do you think fans have kind of written this guy off a little bit too soon? Obviously, he's been working out with Alex Pereira, but that loss to Alex Pereira is still burned into people's minds, the way that Alex was just able to beat him so quickly and easily. And it feels like a lot of people don't really see him as a future title contender, or somebody that can do more in the division than sort of just kind of entertain people and have fun fights sort of in the middle of that top 10 division. I wonder, do you think he's been written off too soon? And what do you think of this version of Sean Strickland that looks like to be in great shape and kind of taking the strategy a little bit more serious?
I'm actually surprised. I'm getting this question. So, because again, the mood might be quite different in Australia than it is here. Do you guys believe that the fans have written him off? I mean, is that where the question comes from, or are you just sort of asking in a more general sense? It's my question, and maybe my sort of mindset on it is a little bit different. But I think for me, after he lost to Alex Pereira, and a lot of other people were just like, all right, well, Sean Strickland, he's not going to be. If Alex Pereira did that to Sean Strickland, what's it going to look like against Israel? What's it going to look like here?
And a lot of people felt like, okay, maybe this guy might have a ceiling that probably doesn't exist. And now we've seen him come back and get these wins and sort of turn his game around. So I wonder if maybe some people might be overlooking the fact that this guy has a second, third, and fourth run left in him and potentially a title contention shot.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, I would say I don't think so. I don't think that they're writing him off in the way in which you're asking the question. Couple things. Losing to Alex the way he did is not great, but then he had the fight against Cannonier, which was, you could argue he won it, but it was very, very close. And so Cannonier kind of had his chance against Izzy and just, it laid an egg to a degree. It wasn't a terrible loss in the sense that he got beat up or anything. He just never got out of first gear. And my thought is, if Sean is kind of neck and neck with that guy, yes, styles make fights, but Sean's even can be at sometimes, a case in the Pereira fight, he can be positionally a little bit over aggressive. A guy like Izzy would chew him up. There's just not a great reason to believe that if they fought 100 times, I'm sure he would win, many of them, but on any given night he could do it. But on that night, I'm just, you just don't really believe that he can actually beat Izzy. He could have a reasonably competitive fight or something, but can he really get over the hump? He doesn't have tremendous knockout power. He doesn't necessarily go for the finish on the feet. There's just nothing quite there that says to me a knockout or a real win over Izzy is something we should definitely take seriously. And also, that I want to be clear about something. It sounds like I might be insulting Sean Strickland. I do not mean it that way. I actually have a lot of respect for Sean Strickland as a fighter. I find his edgelord act, that's really not for me, if I can just be candid. But I like his coach a lot. I might like his coach more than any other coach in the sport. I think very highly of him. I think very highly of Sean Strickland as a fighter. Guys, his takedown defense is absolutely excellent, and he will mix it up with anyone. He does sometimes take risks against very tough guys. Like, he has a lot of the qualities, both in terms of the maturation of his game and in certain cases, some of the attitude that he employs, but not consistently enough for my view. But, in times he gives you a very respectable effort. He is a fighter worthy of respect for that reason. But Izzy, even before the Pereira fight, I think it would have been hard to sell me on exactly what he's got over him. And also, I think this is the second point I wanted to make. After the Pereira rematch, Izzy's popularity to me not only went through the stratosphere, but I think people got a renewed appreciation for his game. I mean, to dig himself out of that mental and frankly competitive hole that he was in, to get back to a place where he's stopping his perceived main adversary, recapturing the belt, that was an extraordinarily triumphant moment. So you're asking, is Sean Strickland a very good fighter? I think so. I think more fans, certainly stateside, appreciate the edgelord act relative to the true fighter that he is. That's my personal sense of things. But I think even if you're like me and you have a healthy respect for actually how good he is and how competitive he is, what he's up against in order to be like a relevant threat against Izzy, it would take a lot. He might get there, by the way, because who the hell else is going to fight him if he beats Whitaker a third time or whatever it ends up being? Like, if he gets through that Whitaker
if Whitaker wins, then he's injured, and it's like a 9-week turnaround. I think that's why Sean, at least for us, is kind of like, I don't see him beating Israel, but I could see him fighting for a belt at least. And this, I think, is kind of the perfect scenario where it might happen.
And he builds it like, he can create a build up because, those guys had the moment at the press conference, and you can build a fight down here out of that.
Sure. I'm not, again, I want to be very clear. I'm not suggesting that any of that is not true. I fully agree he could sell a fight. That press conference they had, I think, what was it, for the first Pereira fight? Or no, it was Izzy versus whoever it was, where Strickland was in the back just chirping at him. I think it was the last International Fight Week, if memory serves. Either way, that certainly was a prelude to a future where I could 100% see that. It's just, gun to my head, who's going to win that? It, for me at this stage, would not be a difficult call to pick Izzy.
Yeah, 100%, man. You mentioned International Fight Week. We got a big one with Alex Volkanovski, obviously, and Yair Rodriguez, which is a fascinating fight. I'm curious though, right? Let's just assume for a second that Alex gets the job done, which by no means is a certainty. But you look at the options, right? You've got potentially him and Islam doing it again, right? You've also got Aljamain Sterling, who wants to move up. And then you got Ilia Tuporia, who just put the whole division on notice. I am curious, out of those options, which one sort of seems, I guess, the most tantalizing for you? I feel like a lot of it just comes down to timeline, who's healthy, who has somebody in their division that's available. And with Ilia Tuporia, like, I know you were saying it's just crazy how young he is. And I know the Weasel made a very good point about by the time Ilia is in his prime, Volk will probably be retired. So you're probably going to see like a very young Ilia Tuporia against Alex. Which one sort of excites you the most?
Well, I mean, all of those are great. I mean, there's not a damn thing wrong with any of them. If I was, Volk's Rasputin in his ear, I would caution away from a Tuporia fight for a couple of reasons. Wow. One, he will, and I know I get killed for bringing this all up all the time. I just mean he's getting older, but he will be 35, Volkanovski, in September, right? So something to think about with like how much, not so much like am I done, but how much time do I have left for big time main event relevant fights, and how do I want to apportion that? Waiting around for a guy who might be 27 or 28, or or 27 obviously, but could be even, if they make the fight a little bit later, could be even older than that. By the time he's really turning into the top of his game, I just don't. Like, what the fuck is the point of just beating other, trying to beat other featherweight contenders when you're on the wrong side of 30 and he is on the right side? It just, I don't quite get it. To me, go do something else. So it might mean waiting around for Aljo. I don't think that's a bad fight, but if you're Volk, you have to be asking how many pay-per-views would I sell with that? Would I be, where would that be? Would I be headlining? Would I be the co-main event? Like a co-main event to a Conor card, you might want that. Otherwise, I don't know how much you want that. And then for me, I think really the best place is going to be 155 for him because, one, I think he's competitive with those guys. We saw that by virtue of his fight against Makhachev. If you can go toe-to-toe with Makhachev and arguably win, you can probably do that with just about the other top five in there, give or take, obviously. So we'll see. But I think he's very competitive, and I think those guys have bigger names, right? They've got real big names. You could do something with that. And he could potentially get right back to a title fight, even if it's not Makhachev. It has to be a number one contender. He could do that too. So I think 155 is the sweet spot for where to ply the rest of his trade with this last great chapter, and who has the biggest names. It seems to me that's the best place to go.
100%, man. I love it, dude. You mentioned you can do something with that. Something else that you can do something with is Manscaped's Weed Whacker 2.0. You just get that guy straight in you, and then whisk those pesky nose hairs and ear hairs away. I don't know if you're like us, Luke. Sometimes you're driving and then you start pulling those guys out. You're wincing. You're basically crying by the time you get to your appointment or whatever. You look like a dickhead. You got one nose hole done. Nose hole, is that what they're called? One nostril done. You got the koala ears on the side of your hairs. You look ridiculous. End that. No more of that. The Weed Whacker 2.0. It's got the improved steel blade system, the skin safe technology you've come to love, and best of all, it comes in the Performance Package 4.0, which is best for value. It comes with all the other goodies, and you get 20% off with the code submission and free shipping. 20% off and free shipping with the code submission. Get it in here. Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. Jump onto Manscaped right now. Change your life forever, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. Now, Luke, I just want to talk a little bit about tough, man, because, right now we're kind of halfway into this tough season, and it's an interesting one because before this tough season started, I feel like there was a lot of hype. And again, this could be different depending on where you are in the States compared to here in Australia. But I know like a lot of people were excited to see Conor make his return as a coach. A lot of people wanted to see what was going to happen between him and Chandler. Now that the season's sort of had a few episodes, it feels like some of that excitement, some of that buzz has kind of gone away about the season, and people are looking at the numbers, talking about that the numbers for the episodes actually aren't great. And now you got Conor missing his USADA deadline and the whole situation that's happening around the sides as well. Got to ask, man, like, does this kind of feel like a waste of time if Conor doesn't end up fighting Chandler? And this whole thing in general, this whole season, is it in a way kind of like just a bit of a disappointing mess so far as it's gone?
Are you asking if a very old reality show created by producers is a waste of time?
Well, this is coming from a guy that still watches the Jersey Shore.
I haven't watched the Jersey Shore in a long time.
That's
I would say this. I would say, have you guys watched it? Have you watched it at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you?
To what extent? I can't lie here. I have a life, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched it. I mean, I watch little clips. I certainly do some read ups. I try to keep up exactly with kind of like the broad details of what's happening. But the thing is with Conor, again, dude, like it's not like we're on the phone and I have like a hotline to the guy. We're just trying to read the room a little bit with him. Dude, his life is in a different place. You know, like people have said, oh, well, he was rich before he took that hiatus. You know, he's rich now. Like, what does the money really have to do with it? Because, you know, he was on top of the world at UFC 205 and blah, blah, blah. And he already had money by the time he fought Floyd, and he had money after Floyd. And like, you know, he has been able to be back at least a little bit since then. But like, I don't think people, and again, I don't know this to be true, so I don't want to suggest that I've got some like purchase on the truth. My best read on the situation is that his life has moved into a different place, and his spirit has not fully caught up with that yet. You know, like he is on private planes everywhere he goes. He made, and I'm talking about like the money he made from Proper 12. Like, this sets up not only his family, it sets up his kids, and then their kids, and then their kids. It would take a Herculean effort to squander the fortune that he has accumulated, and the people he's around, and the places he spends his times, and the comfort in which he lives, and the absolute authorship of anything he wants to do, both hedonistic or work-wise. He gets to completely dictate the terms of everything. Dude, this is what you graduate to when you're done with fighting. You know, so like, I think that there is a part of his life as a former, that's funny I said that. There's a part of his life that as a, let's say he's not currently active fighter, that I think he does still have an attachment to the craft, right? It is a craft. You do work on this. These are your skills. And many of them even see it actually as more than that, not just craft, but art. And I respect that, and I believe that. And like, I think there is still that attachment to everything he built and whatever he did. But his life is not in those places anymore, and the things that drove him to get to the gym and the things that drove him to work hard or to make that the focus of what he did, they don't exist anymore. And that's okay. Like, that's the way that life goes. You know, life, especially when you're as eminently successful as he is, you move through different seasons of your life. And it just looks to me like he's trying to maintain a relationship with the fight game when the rest of his life, quite understandably, has moved on. And so he doesn't want to be gone, and he's not gone. He's just not really there either, is he? And it creates this weird confusion. I think as far as the show goes, it kind of speaks to that. Now, maybe even if Chandler was, coaching his team, they'd be 0-5. But the fact that he's not like, he doesn't really know the guys, it doesn't seem all that well, and he's like on the suit on the side, whereas kind of Chandler's a little bit more hands-on. All of it speaks to like their distance from the game in a way. It's almost poetic in a way. That's my best read on the situation. And I think because there's nothing to look forward to, there is no fight, there is no date, there is no thing there. It's like, well, what the fuck is the point of this? Like, just to have a show, really. And if you like the show, great. But if you don't, I understand it. To answer the broader question, I just feel like he's here, fight game is here, and what you're watching is the distance in between.
I just find it a bit weird as well when you watch it, because it's like you get these weird, like, different versions of Conor, and because of the cuts and the way that they don't really show you what's really going on the whole time, you kind of feel like it's an authentic version of him. You don't know where it's coming from, what's happening. And for a reality show, it's like you want to know, all right, what's going on with the team, what's he up to? But you don't really get a chance to see that. All you get is a chance to sort of see the cuts that I suppose him and the team have approved. So like at one point he'll be sitting there chilled out. You'll be like, okay, he's chilled out. But then at another point he's like pacing around like he's about to fight. And the cuts just go between each other. It takes you out of the realm of the fact that, you're trying to watch somebody do their thing, and it's overproduced, I suppose. In that thing that when we watch a fight night from UFC, and sometimes it's overproduced and doesn't feel legit. That's what they've done here. It's taken away some of the magic that we had with like Rampage Jackson breaking the doors down, or even Chael Sonnen and the way they shot it straight up and the angles that they used, the real beefs and stuff. So Chuck Liddell
usually when they
throw his mobile phone at the wall, those kinds of matches that we loved.
Yeah. Usually when the editing is that hardcore, they're trying to cover for something.
Yeah.
That's and not just them. That's every producer, every editor. Like, for example, do you remember how they showed like some of the, before he made his debut, like some of the training footage around CM Punk, where he would finally like hit a big shot or like take the back, and like it seemed disjointed or hard to know how representative it was, and people like, see, he can do this to pro fighters, and then he gets out there and he just gets just fucking ridden hard and put away wet. you're like, oh, well, they were overly editing to sell you or something. It sounds like it might be a little bit of that.
Yeah, there might be a little bit in this episode as well. You guys are fucking the best show in the world. smooth editing. Now, we'll let you go in a second, Luke. Do you think the fight happens? And also, I just want to point out, like, you got to feel for Chandler because the guy is deceptively old, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like he's 37 years old. He fucking doesn't look 37 years old. He looks phenomenal for his age. But like April of next year, which who knows if the fight's even going to happen, but if it happens then or later, he'll be 38. Like for the lightweight division, that's definitely getting up there in age. This is past his prime and he's wasting time on the shelf because he thought he was going to fight Conor and now it's up in the air. So I'm curious about how you think he's handling it. I guess it doesn't really make sense to just go out and start chasing fights when you know that you may fight Conor, but do you think the fight happens?
The thing is this, you can't fault Chandler. You just can't.
Not at all.
I mean, just think about it. He didn't make the move from Bellator to UFC until he was 34. 34. And he even said it, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. And this has been true about his career more generally, but it's been like hyper true in the UFC side, which is he is there to get as much as he can, as quick as he can, and then get out. Like it's just accumulate, like do whatever you got to do. So like, there might've been fights he could have won. Maybe it's less so against Gaethje, but like, maybe he could have played it a little bit safer and beaten Oliveira or something like that. But he's just been gung ho, balls out, fan favorite, whatever happens, that kind of a thing. I'm going to try and, win a bunch of fights, but also win a bunch of fans by being fan friendly. All the things he did in Bellator, again, just kind of like magnified to a degree. And it has worked. And like, if you're in his position, that's exactly the right attitude to take. Like he made the move when he could. He has had the right attitude. He's had the right results. Getting to that Conor McGregor lane, that's what this was all supposed to build to. Like that's what this was all supposed to be about. So of course, if they offer you a reality show, but they're like, we don't have a fight agreement in place, but maybe we'll get one. If you're Chandler, do you take that risk? Of course you do. Of course you do. You have to take that risk. Like if that's the thing you think will get you that fight with Conor, and that's what the fuck you're here for, do it. It looks like it's going to backfire, unfortunately. And I don't think a strategic error on his part at all. How could, you could say now, how could you have known if there wasn't a bout agreement, what would have happened? But hindsight's 2020. I guarantee you they thought that this was going to be a big thing. Here's the thing. I do believe that Conor probably will fight again. I'm not certain about that, but I think it's probably more likely than not. I don't think he fights Chandler. I mean, I don't know what the fuck's going on with it. I mean, if he was going to fight Chandler, dude, that would have been moving in that direction. The only thing I'll say is I'll put a little asterisk by what I'm telling you now by just replying that if they waive the 6-month USADA testing pool requirement, then that changes the equation. That would very meaningfully change it. But if they're not going to do that for him, which I find surprising, but if they're not going to, then yeah, I think the Chandler thing is over. I think it's too late already. You would have already seen them move in that direction, and that's just not what they've done. So I think you'll see Conor again, but it seems unlikely to see him against Chandler.
I wonder what's going to happen with Nate Diaz and this Jake Paul thing, and because he keeps saying he's going to be fighting Conor potentially next. So we'll see what happens. But for now, guys, make sure to follow Luke Thomas at Luke Thomas News. Man, you and Brian, you guys have the best picks for your Morning Combat things. And just go follow Morning Combat just to look at the photos, the photoshops before the episodes. One of my favorite things to look at on Twitter. Definitely makes it worthwhile being on Twitter. And of course, follow their awesome coverage leading into UFC 290. Luke Thomas, as always, what an honor for us to have you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, fellas. See you soon, I hope.